Alright, let's see. We've got the... I drilled out the hole to 11/16 because the rod is actually 5/8, so needed a little bit of wiggle room in there considering the angle change. Okay, so let's come in here, and we're all the way at the top of the suspension travel, and you can see there's a little gap there. Now, if the bolt was in here, you know, that could be squeezed down tight, and then at the end of the rod here, we'd be shoving up into the top there. We wouldn't have this looseness here. Okay, so we'll come back down. That's roughly middle of travel. Okay, you can see we're pretty much perpendicular here. And let's come down under here, and we're pretty much perpendicular here. So I love the alignment. But, you know, we're already fighting a little bit of binding there. I tightened that nut up. You won't be able to see it, but the same kind of gap we saw the other direction, we see this way. So, now that we're down at the bottom, there's definitely some tightness there. Now the silver line there is the center. That's exactly where the stock bushings would center on. So it appears the arm is exactly the right length. The challenge is finding the bushings. So since we no longer have the gap under the bolt there, since I tightened it up, that means that we're getting just a little bit of twist in the lower control arm. And I don't think there's any way to really see it. And you can feel it's a little tighter in there. My big thing is the bushings down here. I'm having trouble finding stock rubber ones, and real easy to find urethane ones. I'm just afraid the urethane ones are going to be way too stiff. And the other challenge is too is they have a sleeve that goes in, and I almost kind of hate to drill that out any more than I already have. But I guess another 1/8 of an inch in the grand scheme of things really isn't going to be too detrimental. So putting the bigger arm on would definitely be the nicer way. I like the way it interfaces with the arm. Okay, and as long as I'm here, I guess let's see if we can show that. The original bolt hole is down under here, and I think if as suggested by George, weld that up and just re-drill a new one. Whoops, just re-drill a new one in here. The challenge becomes, ooh, well, with the way that fades away, the flange of the nut may just fit in there. Okay, that was something I was kind of worried about. I didn't look at that yet. Yeah, I just may go ahead and drill a hole in there and see how the nut fits. If the nut fits in beautifully, I'm not going to bother making a nut plate. If it doesn't, then I guess I'll have to make a nut plate. So, a couple other geometry questions to answer and stuff like that, but that ought to do for now. Well, let's see if I can lay out some of the options here with the urethane. I would just as soon get the rubber ones. They use these nice big factory washers on either side. I'm pretty sure the thickness of the mount on the hard body is substantially thicker than on the 521. I think there's cups on both sides to hold the rubber. So what we're looking at here is this is the stock one, and you can see that's only about a 3/8 of an inch. This is 5/8 of an inch. So this hole's actually too big. It's got a sleeve. The sleeve could take up some of it, but the sleeve is too small a diameter to bore and have enough left to bother with. I don't know that the sleeve is necessarily a necessity anyway, because there's no way this is going to wear out like this one. I mean, you could see, give it a second here to focus, hopefully. But you can see that groove worn all the way around there. That's because it didn't have a sleeve. Now, something that thin definitely, absolutely needs a sleeve. The thick one up here, you know, man, sorry, I'm just really not going to worry too much about that much divot after, how old is this truck? 40 years? 40-something years? So there's no way that's going to wear out. Not even an issue. So anyway, then this is some other suspension urethane bushing. This is a, when I went down to get the rubber bushings, this is what ended up coming in. So this is a urethane bushing. I'm not too thrilled with the fact it's urethane. I would have much rather had rubber. So we have a sleeve here that fits in there. It's kind of sloppy on here. I'm not real thrilled with that. It means that in order to get the bushing to fit on here nicely and everything, I would have to bore the hole in the mount even more. Also have these. Now, these are way bigger than, you know, what was on the stock arm. So a 5/8 inch hole, which is a little bit smaller than that, 5/8 inch hole would still leave some meat around it and stuff like that. A couple of washers, you know, these cupped washers that come, you know, on the factory arm. You know, put a 5/8 inch hole in the center of those and use those. That might work. I'm not so sure how long this urethane would hold up. And let's say everything's even and it does hold up. Then the other challenge is the fact that it's not anywhere near long enough to do what I want it to do. I suppose I could put a couple in. These are nice and cheap. I could, when I bore it out, the lip will be just about shaved off. That puts it real close to that length. Ooh, that might be an option actually. Because the big one I'm holding is actually a little too long. It's going to have a really hard squish when it goes in. And it's extremely hard. It's I don't think it's going to squish very well. Those, on the other hand, that just might work. Another option, I'd just as soon find the rubber ones. But the challenge is, here, let's take this one. Let's come over here. The challenge is that's all the thickness we have to work with. So, as you can see, that's about as big a diameter as we can work with. And lengthwise, trying to use two hands at once here, and brain's not quite clicking. So anyway, that would actually work fairly well. I'd probably trim off the flange here so that a washer could fit in there, the factory washer. Do the same thing over here. Then that might do enough squish and everything. It just fits on the end of the bolt. It just fits on the shaft. Fairly loose. You know, so a sleeve would be good. But the sleeve they have, I'd have to bore it out. You know, and I'm really not looking to have to machine a ton of parts and that stuff. So another option with the rubber one is, you can see, okay, I've cut the sides down on that stuff, so you can see there that it's way too big to fit up in there. But I have cut it down some, and I think I'd have to put it on the other side of the bolt heads first, and then push the rod through. Sorry, I see the camera keeps. I should close the garage door so the brightness in the back doesn't keep throwing the exposure off. Anyway, then have to do the same thing with the washer there. Now, I think that would be plenty thick enough, and this recording's been plenty long enough. I think that is a. I think that would be a plenty safe option. The whole question comes down is, how thick is the, when I get the new bushings, I've got another set on order. Hopefully they come in at 430. Hopefully I'll find out that they're rubber, and I can get a much better idea what's going on then. Otherwise I'm going to have to order from Rock Auto and wait a couple of weeks. I think this option really ought to work just fine. It's just getting the stupid rubber bushings. That's the real issue, actually. So we'll see what happens. That's it for now. All right, one concern I've had with using this big one, using the big tension rod, and I've just got it in there real loosely right now, is my understanding is that this pivot point should line up with that pivot point. You know, and so it's all well and good that I can go in here and drill another hole and mount that at a new angle. The binding isn't severe or anything like that, but it does make me wonder what it'll do over the course of time. Whereas on the stock 521, they had, it wasn't fixed mounted, it wasn't a solid mount at the end there, so it had room to give. So I may pursue looking at that a little bit more. And I've got it set up over here so you can see what I'm talking about a little bit better. Okay, I've got this pretty much lined up straight, and you can see that it comes right down here, and that's basically right where those two intersect. That's right where the mount would be and where it would pivot. So you know, it's right in line with the pivot point of the lower control arm. That's how they can bolt it on solid. So I don't know that the bigger, thicker arm is going to be doable, if only just for that one reason. It would require new mounts welded onto the frame to put it at the correct pivot point, and that's just not realistic to do. So I think I'll pursue the stock 521 tension rod. So I've got the stock one mounted in here. This is the stock tension rod for the 521, and I would have to put a stock arm back up there to get an idea, or crawl under one of the other rigs. You know, but out in space, that's about where it wants to sit. Now, let's, yeah, see, so that's not too bad. That's down just a little bit. But what I'm looking at is, since that's kind of the sweet spot right there, shouldn't be too hard at all to make a mount that just bolts to those two holes there. So, let me see if I can... That's roughly stock, so that's not too bad. Oh man, big reason I try to keep this thing on the tripod most of the time. Okay, so that's roughly where it was going to be, and you can definitely feel the how much twist is in here. You know, it's twisting on two axes. Not only is it twisting vertically, it's also twisting this way. But since it would have rubber isolators at both ends, it would locate the lower control arm, but still allow that flexibility, you know. And back to the point, if it's in the same video, that this is not in line with that. That's the way the suspension's designed stock. So even on the factory lower control arm, it was still designed to roll through two different axes at one time. So axes. So I think that's it. I think I'll crawl under one of the 521s and take a peek. Okay, at stock ride height, this is more or less unmolested, at least chassis wise. 521. And so let's roll down underneath here. Alright, you can see that that's perpendicular in both positions. Something else you don't typically see either is threads. Usually those threads are threaded in all the way, trying to get some caster back in the system by shortening this rod up a bit. So but let's see here. If we sight down that way, I think you can see that This is not in line with the fulcrum of the lower control arm. So, I think we'll probably still go this way. I don't know yet. I still got to think about it. Alright, well, this is the stock 521 tension control rod. And basically, going to end up going with this. Might create a new rod. I'm not exactly sure. I highlighted in one of the other videos. Spent more time on it than I thought I would. But anyway, the pivot point is not set up so that to be able to use the factory arm. That's basically all there is to it. This, I would like to see this a bigger, stronger rod, but for right now I'm going to set it up with the stock rod. That's what everybody's going to have. That's what I have. So let's see if we can move around here a little bit. Now we are at ride height, okay? And there is 1/8 of an inch there. Now keep in mind that this plate, you know, this plate can get trimmed off here and angled down toward this direction. I'll put a gusset down in here. This isn't necessarily the final shape of that piece either. That's a leftover part from another project, so it was already drilled for the right size and everything like that, so I just used it. So what I'm testing here is I need to gotta love it, huh? Okay. Yeah, the floor is where I wanted them anyway. Okay, so we are at full suspension drop, and you can see there's still 1/8 of an inch, or not an 1/8 of an inch, there's still the 1/16 of an inch there, but keep in mind that, you know, the plate's going to get cut back to here, and there's a good 1/4 inch there. So, plenty of room there. It handles the angle okay. That's why I set it at ride height. That would be halfway through the swing and handle the angle both directions. So, we'll go up the other way. What do we got there? We got 1/4 inch now. That kind of makes sense. Angle goes back the other direction a little bit. We're good to go there. And that can be the pieces for this plate can be laser cut fairly cheaply. You know, jigged to weld them together, that kind of stuff. That all depends on whether or not this goes into production or not. So, it's looking fairly simple. One of the next things I need to do is to figure out that spacing. And I might have to take those tacks off and move that. I thought I positioned that to where there was no gap. I'll have to double check that. There should be no gap. I'll figure out what dimension is there. I should make a spacer for that so I don't have to keep moving this. From that point, it's really only the steering arm, and the steering arm is pretty much already figured out. Oh, actually the next thing would be to get the sway bar off of one of the trucks and check for clearance. I think that'll be the next thing. That'll be tomorrow. That'll be it for today, I think.